Okay, we've got a good number of people, so let's begin. Hello, everyone. It's Jackie here. I think I probably know most of you, but welcome to this webinar today where we're looking at views, charts and dashboards. And we have for you our solutions consultant, Adam Peacock, who is the guru of all things views, charts and dashboards. So I'm going to hand over to him in a second. He's more than happy to answer questions, or if you've got anything specific that you'd like to talk about. Adam, you're happy to pick those sort of things up.
Yep.
So he's going to give you a demo, but please do feel free to enter anything into the chat or into the Q&A. I'll be keeping an eye on those, and we'll address any questions at the end. But if there's anything that you really want to talk to Adam about, give us a shout on the Q&A or the chat, or raise your hand and we'll see if we can unmute you. Okay, but for now, I'm going to hand over to Adam.
Hi everyone. So just an introduction to myself for the people that haven't met me. I'm a solutions consultant, as Jackie said, here at Mercury, coming up to nearly 3 years now. But before that, I was actually a client of Mercury's for about 6 years. So been on your side of the fence, used the system, and now on the other side with Mercury. So we're going to go through it, and I know Jackie said we're going to do questions at the end, but I'm going to break up questions into 3 bits. I'm going to go into views, and then at the end of views, we'll open it up to questions for that, then charts, and then dashboards, just so it keeps it kind of in some kind of format. But yeah, that said, I'm just going to share my screen, and we'll get started. So I've tried to reset everything in our demo system back to the default, just in case anyone else has got it set like that, so you can kind of get the look and feel so it's familiar to you all. The first thing I'm going to highlight, which is actually nothing to do with views, charts and dashboards, is Mercury on 100% zoom just isn't nice. So zooming out your web page to 80, 75 can actually get a lot more data in. You can work a lot better. And it's really useful for these dashboards. As you can see, you get more tiles on the screen. So that's the first place I'd start. And I've not really got any examples that came to me for this. So I'm just going to kind of go through it, somewhat wing it in a way, and go through a couple of examples. Again, we can open it up to anything that you guys want specifically. But I'm going to start off with views, and I'm going to do contacts, I'm going to do vacancies, and I'm going to do placements. We'll do a few charts, then we'll get them in the dashboard and show you how we can make them a little bit more colourful, a little bit more pretty, and a lot better data to see. So starting off with contacts, there's multiple things we can do within here. Obviously, you've got the two options. You can look for candidates, you can look for client contacts, and we can actually start drilling into our data within here. So the prime example I like to give all of our customers is going into the edit filters. And this is for more of a BD perspective. Clicking the edit filters, taking off the information that's not relevant. So in this case, is it a candidate contact? We're going to start with a client view for this one, more BD specific. I'm just going to add a row in. I'm going to do is client contact, so that we're only returning clients. We'll keep the status as active. I'm going to make it really simple. We're going to look for certain job titles. I'm going to add a multiple in here. I'm going to group them up. So I'm going to go through different examples of grouping, filtering, and then how we can surface that information as well. So I'm just going to go with 3 here. And the first thing you'll notice is you can actually change it from being equals, so that job title is exact, to contains. So I'm going to go to contains, and each one of these are going to move over. And then we're going to look for certain types of job titles. So we're looking for senior people on our system in this view that we've got a mobile number or some kind of contact information where we've never actually contacted them. So these are decision makers, the people that are in charge of the money, but we've never actually contacted them on our system, but we have got a mobile number. So they've ended up there from forever and a day, or from your Zoom infos, your Lushes of the world, but we've never actually reached out. So we're going to start with putting some key values in. So chief, manager, director. And you can expand this further, put your own titles within there. And we're going to start to select each one of these. And when you click the 3 dots at the end, you can choose to make them, not delete them, make them into a group. So select the ones you want to group, click the 3 dots, and make group. And you'll see it changes to like a bit of a grey colour, and it'll auto default to an and group, but you can drop this down and do or. So this current view that we're looking at is looking for anyone that's active, that is a client that has a job title of chief, manager, or director. When it comes to stuff like job titles, though, just be careful if you're using contains, because one thing I found previously was if you search for stuff like CTO, it's actually contained in a lot more stuff because of the word director. So when you use contains, just be careful with stuff like that. Now we're going to do the exact same, but we're going to do personal phone, and work phone. So these are your two mobile numbers. Personal mobile, sorry, and work mobile. And again, we don't need to contain anything specifically. We just want to know it's got data. So we're going to change both of these to contains data. And again, we're going to make these into a group. And this is going to be an all group. So now breaking down this list again, all active client contacts with X, Y, or Z job title or part of their job title, where they have got a personal mobile or a work mobile, or something filled out in that field. We all know what recruiters are like. There's probably just a 0 in some of them. Then we're going to do to the last one, which is just adding a row. Last called, could be last contacted, but called specifically means for the phones. Does not contain data. So when you're in any kind of date field, I'm going to touch upon date fields in a different view, but you get all these different options. So you can do on a specific date, in the last month, in X amount of time, drill down into your dates to get more specifics. But we're just going to come down here and just say does not contain data. So this is now showing us anyone that's of a certain level with a mobile number or a personal mobile where the last called on the system does not contain data. So this will highlight either two things: hiring contacts on your system of key decision makers that haven't been contacted, or they have been contacted and the notes aren't in the system. We then apply that. You're going to get a nice list of contacts on the database. We've got 5,000 plus in our demo system. But giving that to a consultant isn't actually useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to take away a few of these columns. A lot of them are candidate specific because we've started in a candidate view. We're just going to edit the columns here. And we're going to remove some of the information. So we don't care about personal email, care about personal mobile. And the best thing with views is keeping it as simple as possible for the end user. More information can just be a bit too much when they just need the name, the client, the job title, and the numbers. And again, we can come into here, add a column, and put mobiles in here. So personal mobile, work mobile. You can then apply that, and you've got the basics of a really good business development list. You can split this off by geography as well if you want to add more filters into here. But just for a standard view, you can see within here anyone that's got a personal or a work mobile. So some will have personal, some will have work. You can then save this, and it could be owner driven as well. So if you want it specific owners, give it a name. And with any views within the system, I like to add an emoji just because dynamics can be a little bit uncolourful at times. So if I said hiring managers or C-suite, let's call it, with mobile, never called. And on your keyboard, if you click the Windows key and the full stop, you'll get the emoji pop up. So you can actually come across and you can start to add different emojis in. Some of them more relevant than others, but I can put into here a no phone on there just so it highlights it a little bit more. And you can save that. So now when you see it as a view, it isn't just here's a load of contacts. It's really simple. C-suite with mobile, never called. Now you can get this even neater. We can take certain parts of the list, expand it. We can move things around from within here. And then once we're happy with it, we can just save that out and share that with the relevant teams or individuals. So to share any view, chart, or dashboard, in the top right, you'll see share. You can click manage access. Choose the individuals you want to have access. if it's a standard view that everyone in the business is going to get, so if you're making a recruiter dashboard for day-to-day use and you want new starters to have it as well, I'd always recommend sharing it with the team. So if I had, we call it new business inside here. Yeah, new business team. If you share it with the team, anybody that joins and gets added onto the system and is put as part of the team will automatically have that view shared with them. It can just save you so much time having to do it every single one for everyone that joins. Or if you want individuals, so if I wanted, who's on our demo system, if I wanted Kieran to have full access to this view, I can choose the team has the access to read, so they can see the information and they can share it, but they can't change anything. I don't want them going and customizing it and changing it for everyone else. But Kieran, who's got a bit more technical knowledge, is going to be a bit of an admin to the system. He can have the option to write and change the view, change the columns, edit the criteria. You can also give them delete rights if you want to, or the rights to assign it. That's just on ownership. It doesn't really do much more from there. You can then share, and as soon as they come into the system, they'll have that information. A couple of examples I've got from a contact view within here is stuff like people not engaged with in a certain amount of time, contacts not called in X times of this month. But I've made really nice, simple views for just all the hiring managers and all the candidates on the system. So this is my hiring managers list. And you can see we've got the full name, the client, the job title, the email. Then we've got two columns at the end here, which aren't actually contact columns. This is relating to the client that they work for. So on our client record, we have the client category and the client subsector. And we've kept it generic inside Mercury, where we've got gold, silver, bronze for the client category, and the subsectors we've just got for the industry that business is in. We can actually start to surface this information onto the contacts page by looking at related data. So if I went into edit columns, I can add a new column. And you'll see when you get to add a column, it will show you the contact in the top left. And everything underneath here is a field on the contact record. Some of them will be hidden by default, or you'd have chosen to hide them. But every field that's related to a contact will be in this list. So there'll be loads in here. You can search on them for the specific ones you want in. But we can actually take this further and we can go into related. You're going to see we're going to get a load of options. These are all the other records in the system that have some form of relationship with a contact record. So if you come down, you'll see current client is one of them here. So the current client. And then in the brackets is usually what the record's called. So the current client in the bracket means just a client. That's what you're used to seeing. You can actually drop the current client down. And now we get to see all the fields on that client record. So in the case of subsector and client category, they are client-specific columns or fields that we can surface within here. So if we wanted to look at the client's city, so where the actual head office is based rather than where that contact's based, with remote working, take me for example, Mercury HQ is Birmingham. I technically work out of the London office, but I work from Manchester. So it's not always necessarily accurate. But if we wanted to pull the client city in, we can just add that from a related field. You'll see the current client in the bracket, so you know it's related. Click apply, and you can add that field in. So now we can see down the right here the client's city. And I know a lot of the BD or a lot of the kind of mail shots or spec sends that you guys are doing is usually driven by the client's address rather than the contact's address. So this is how we can do that from here. But yeah, any field that's on any related record we can pull from. Similar example would be on a placement, you can pull vacancy fields from the related vacancy. Speaking of placements, I've got a pre-created view here for all the placements made. If I just drop this down. And within here again, we're starting to showcase some of the client categories and sectors. So now we're looking at the placements where the client's in X, Y, or Z subsector or category. And we're going to get onto this with charts in a bit so we can start charting up against this information. But we can actually start looking at, if we click into edit filters again, and I'll just clear this down. Delete this one out as well. When it comes to actually creating searches, we can search for obviously fields that are on the placement. So the type of placement is perm contract temp. But we can also go where if we add a related entity, we can look at where the client, sometimes you'll forget the name, so you can just scroll through client name bracket client. And now we're looking in this related search in this grey box for fields on the client record. So where the client category is gold. And these will be your categories. You can define them, or the sectors. Let's do it on the subsector as well in here. So if I wanted to see subsector as finance, we'll take the gold out. This is now going to return me any placements that we've made that are permanent, where the client we've placed them with is in the sector financial services. Then apply that and you will just get the specific placements in financial services. Doesn't matter on the job title, doesn't matter on the client. I think in our system, majority of these are going to be with KPMG, yeah, just because it's a demo system, but for you guys, you'll have more. But you can activate, if you want to get really in depth with it, you can do related fields inside related fields inside related fields. An example of that would be if I wanted to do related hiring managers from that placement, which will be, see, even after 9 years, I'm still picking up the different naming conventions of everything. So client contact is the hiring manager. And we might say, show me all the placements where the hiring manager doesn't have an email address put in. So does not contain data. We might add another related field where that hiring manager's related current client doesn't have an address filled in, for example. So you can go deeper with this related field. It can be quite confusing, especially when with the Microsoft layout, it keeps moving it more and more to the right. So there's loads of stuff spinning off this way, but you can keep drilling into the information within here. I find usually you only need to go one related field deep. So in terms of like this one, where the client, where the hiring managers that we've placed with don't have an email address, but you might want to sometimes go further.
Adam, we've got a
When,
quick question, if that's
yeah,
all right, about how do you create a group in Manage Access?
so the groups, so like the in terms of the sharing out from the teams are determined in the back end. So in the advanced settings, you can set everyone up with a primary team and other teams. I won't go into it. I think there's a knowledge base for it. But in the back end of Mercury, you add all your users into it, and you can set multiple things. You can set their primary team, other teams they're part of. So their primary team might be New Business UK, but they might have other teams of contract or .NET if they're the specific market. So they can have multiple teams. You can then have who they report to as well, or their geographical location where their office is based. So they're part of the London team. They do contract .NET, but they're generally part of UK New Business, and their manager is this person. So when it comes to filtering down on these views, you can filter down on all that information. Once they're put into the teams, you can share them out, and you can create as many teams in the back end and assign them to as many people. But yeah, so one you could go over with your CSM, they'll be able to take you through that in terms of managing it.
And that would be an admin job, would it? That would be an administrator
Yeah,
that had that access? Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
and then just following on from that, if we were looking at ownership level reporting, so we were looking at the owners of these placements. When you do owners, you can do equals current user, or if you drop this down, you get a few options. I'm just going to zoom on my screen so you can see them. But you've got does not equal current user, so everyone but yourself. You've got equals current user or the reporting hierarchy. So in the back end, as just mentioned, you will have a full org chart of the business. So when you put who reports into who on the users page, it will create an org chart of the business. It doesn't have to be correct because no consultant's ever going to see it. So I would usually do the consultant's hierarchy as it is. And then for anyone that's managing the system, everyone's going to report into them just so you can see all the data in one. But this will show anybody that is in your hierarchy. So if I've got a trainee, I will see my data and my trainee's data. My manager will see mine, my trainee, and anyone else that reports into them. The owner of the business will see everyone, and the trainee will just see theirs. And the benefit of that is I create one view based on ownership, so equals me or my reporting hierarchy. I can share that to everyone, and they will see what's relevant to them, rather than having to create team sales, team new business, teams Manchester, teams London, having to create loads and loads of different views and charts, and having to update it as and when new people join or the teams, new teams are created. You can also report on teams. So if you're not worried about people seeing up the ladder, if you will, you can search across. So if I'm in UK new business, I can see all mine and my teams, whether somebody's above me in terms of they're my manager or not. I can see all of that. Do the same with hierarchy as well and reporting. And then you've got your standard one. So equals, contains, begins with. Similar stuff with created on. So if I did created on field, we can jump into this and we can look at, on or after this time, this date, X, Y, Z. But if we come down, you'll see we've got quite a lot of the last X fields within here. So if I always want this to be live and updating, show me all the placements that were created in the last 2 weeks. Let's take the users out and I'll give you a use case for this. Show me all the placements, or let's say this was a vacancies view. Show me all the vacancies in the last 2 weeks where the type of position equals perm. You create a list like this. You could define it down by job titles and tags within there. But as a contract recruiter, I now get to see all the live perm vacancies that have been created in the system. And while the perm consultant is trying to find a permanent member of staff, that gives me the option to go in and sell in a contractor in the interim while we do this search. So you can go, in the 4 weeks while we're conducting this search, can we get you a contractor in? Trying to sell in that contract solution. And similarly, this could be for compliance, this could be for finance, say, here's all the placements made this week, this is what you need to action. So that's a bit of a kind of flyby on views. I'm trying to keep to the time frames. Is there any questions? Is there any specific examples people want? And if you are ever going to have a view that you guys want to create, don't worry about what's in Mercury. Don't try and build from Mercury. Have the idea. So I want to see a list of these kind of contacts with this criteria. Bring that to your CSM if you're unsure, and they'll tell you if it is or isn't possible with inside Mercury. Don't try and work around the fields, because sometimes you can you get a little bit stuck with that.
We've had no other questions, but I think that was really useful so far, Adam. I think there's some really nice little tips, and the Windows full stop has gone down like just really popular. So I think you've got a lot of fans just for that tip, if nothing else. But we haven't got anything else at the moment. But if there is anything, I'll tell you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that Windows full stop, that isn't just Mercury specific. That's across Microsoft. So stuff like these subsectors, that's how I created all the different subsectors and drop down options with a little bit of color and a little bit of categorization. But just coming back to, if I just refresh my page, coming back to the view that I had initially of all the placements made, I'm going to start charting up against that information. Give it a second to load. It's always the way when you're trying to get through something. So I showed before how we can add related columns, so the client's categories and the client's subsectors. And again, this doesn't have to be your categories and your subsectors. It could be your discipline. It could be whatever it needs to be. You're adding them through the related columns. But as soon as you add them into here, every column that you add to the view, so client name, job title, category, subsector, type, this will show up in your options for creating a chart. So if I went to create a chart here and went to new, these client fields won't actually show up normally. But because they're in the view themselves, they're set as a column, they will now show up when it comes to creating charts. So if I want you to do a horizontal one of client category, it will now show up. And little tip on this, just to pull back into here, you'll see the columns that I've selected: client name, job title, category, so on and so forth. And then columns that I've chosen for this view, when I go in to create a chart and drop this down, everything above this dotted line is the columns that you've selected. everything below is all the other fields on that record. So in this case, placement, but everything above that dotted line is the view in order as well. So if you can't find anything, just put it on the view. You can always take it off afterwards, but it will show up in here. So in this case, I'm going to create a chart, and it's going to be by client category, and in Mercury sense, that's gold, silver, bronze. And then we're going to do by number of vacancies. So I can just go vacancy, and if you wonder how you can get through a list with like this without taking ages of scrolling through, it's keyboard sensitive. So if I was looking for vacancies, if I type V, it's going to take me all the way down to V. It's a little bit quicker to navigate through. It'll build the chart on the right, so you'll now see, gives you a little bit of an insight of bronze, silver, silver and gold. But I want to see these in order in terms of highest to lowest. So I can then put a rule on top of this, which is just on the end, which is top and bottom rule. Obviously, you can change your chart type if you want it in a bar chart or a line chart or a pie chart. So in pie chart, I'll split it out like that. I'm going to use the columns for now. But we're going to click the top and bottom rule, and it'll give you some options as default. So you get top X, bottom X, and clear rule. Top X will give you top 3 or top 5. But if you want, if you're looking at a larger data set and you want to see, your top X amount of clients, so on and so forth, if you click custom, you can put your own value in here. It only goes up to, or last time I checked, it only went up to 99, I believe. So you can only have up to 99 top rules. What it will just do is it will organize your chart. So it will put the highest figure first. So you'll see gold's the highest, then bronze, then silver. And you can do this on any chart, whether this is consultants, whether it's phone calls, whatever it needs to be. And you can actually add multiple layers to this. So instead of just gold, silver, and bronze, number of vacancies by the category, we might add a second category in here, and we might do it by type. So you'll notice in each one of these, it will break down the gold, silver, and bronze by contract, perm, and temporary. You can't do a top rule on this because there's multiple values in each category, but it will give you a nice insight to say we've had 32 gold permanent placements, contract placements, whatever it needs to be. If I just take that one out there, you can do it on consultant as well, or categorization. If I just save that, you can give it a name. And if I just load up my show charts, you'll see it's a lot nicer to look at. You'll see a lot more information. I pre-made one as well with a different name, which is, wrong one, that's another example. Number of placements per client category, gold, silver, bronze. And when looking at any data inside Mercury, if I want to look at just these silver ones, if I click the bar, the data on the right will reflect what I'm looking at. So you now see I'm just seeing all the silver placements. If I wanted to drill down into this and look at the consultants that I've placed in these silver roles, or these silver clients, you can see there's me, Simon from Daxtra, and Jack Birch. If I select Jack, the placements on the right are just going to show Jack's placements. And again, you can keep drilling into that information. If you want to get back, you can just go home. Once you're happy with the kind of charts you've created, click the 3 dots and you can share. This will load up again, so you can share that chart with the users and the teams. Always remember you have to share the view, the chart, and the dashboard for them to see it in a dashboard. You can edit, go back to it if you ever want to. But a couple of examples is I've done the same, but by gross profit and by sector. So how much money we're making in each sector: oil and gas, financial services, and again, it's got a bit of a rule on it, so it shows you, and it gives you the little names down the bottom as well, so you can see it. A little bit more interactive within here, and again, still got that drill down functionality. If I select the area, I'll see the clients in question. But yeah, create your charts, create your different types that you want. You can do it top 10 rules on clients by gross profit. So again, that's, if I just open this up, I'll show you how that one's built. It's just gross profit, sum of, client name at the bottom. Obviously, on a client record, we don't have a field which auto calculates the total money made with them, but we do on the placements. So we can chart up by the client in question on the placement, by the gross profit, and again, you could drill that down by type if you wanted to. and I've just put a top 10 rule on top of it, so I can see my top 10 accounts inside the system and how much I've made with them.
I presume, Adam, there's no limit to the amount of reports or charts that you can make.
No limit, you can make as many as you want. I would just be cautious with how many you share with consultants. Just share with them what they need to see, because otherwise they'll have a drop down like this, like mine is from all the testing ones and fun that I've been having with it, and it is just a little bit chaotic. But yeah, there's unlimited, and same with views as well.
Sorry, I've had a question come through that says, how do you set a time period for viewing the details in the charts?
So if you wanted to set, you can either set it on the view. So if you wanted to set the view to this financial year, this year, and the data will be here. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. I like, if it's for consultants, I like to do it in the view. So create multiple different time frames. So if we're looking at all placements made, it's going to be placements made this month, last month, this year, this week. So have you different options. And when it comes to dashboards, you can put them in a drop-down list. And I'll show you how that works after, so then they can just drop down and select the date. Within the actual chart themselves, you can't say, show me this time period versus this time period. You can put on the chart within here, created on. So if I did number of vacancies by start date or created on, you can choose whether it's month, week, year, financial period, and it will show you how many vacancies or placements have been made over that time period. But it doesn't give you the option to filter that down from there to say from that chart I only want to look from this date to this date. The best doing that with the actual filtering of the views. Any other questions on that? On the dates or anything, Jackie?
No, that's great. Thank you.
And then I'm just going to come into some dashboards. I'm going to show off a couple of charts that I've created over the time. Actually, just before that, I'm going to show you one other thing that we can do with charts and views. I'm going to come into vacancies, and this is a part of vacancies people haven't necessarily seen. But if you edit the columns on a vacancy, you'll see at the top we've got all these kind of asterisk figures. These are summed or calculated figures. So I can look at all of these vacancies, how many people have been offered interviews, how many candidate calls, and for that to work, they need to add the call to the vacancy timeline, not the candidate. Selected, let's say selected, submitted, and I'm going to put them in order. So selected, submitted, interviewed, and offered. I'm just going to delete all this other stuff out here because it's not relevant to me currently. And click apply, and you'll get a view like this, which looks at all the vacancies by name, by client, by created on, to selected, submitted, interviewed, and offered. So you can see in this process, we've selected 4, submitted, none, interviewed, none, offered, none. So you can see how many are going through in this process. You can then chart up against this information. I think I created one earlier, which is based, I'll tell you what, I'll create it again, but if I go into new chart from here, make sure to save your view actually before changing anything so it pulls across. Vacancies, my candidate count. Put a new chart on this view, and we could say number of candidates submitted by the type of vacancy, so perm, contract, temp, or we could do it by client and just have all in here. And then instead of sum, you could have it as average. And this is going to be a little bit crazy because we've got so many clients within here. So let's see if I can put that up to interviewed. Save and close out. Let's see how crazy this chart goes now. But you'll see, if I expand this out, all the clients are at the bottom, and it will show the average number of, no, it's not, this is a sum. It's the, but you can do the average within here. So if I just go back and show you that bit. Instead of having it interviewed by sum, you can drop this down. You can do average within there. So the average number of interviews per client with all the jobs that you've worked with them, average number of submissions. And let me just change this client to just one that. Turn it down to just KPMG so it looks a little bit neater. And then in the interview, so my average for interviews at KPMG is 0. The reason for that is because majority of our vacancies within here have got no interviews. So I'm just going to put a filter on here to say filter by, only show me the ones that have at least had an interview. So interview count is equal to 1 or greater than. You'll now see that our average interviews is 2. So we've got a lot of ones, got one that's 12. It'll look a lot neater in your data set where you've actually got, people going through the process rather than our salespeople demoing it and just going from selected, placed. But you can do that in any of these kind of calculation fields. So you can look at the averages. From them averages, you could put a top 10 rule on. So let's say it's average number of interviews. And this is a great use case, right? So we create the chart. We do show me all the clients by the average number of interviews or submissions. If you would like, put a rule on it to say, show me the top 10. We can see here, here's the average number of interviews per client by the top 10. I've just got KPMG in here, so I'm just going to clear that filter. But these 10 clients and how the number of average interviews is. So this client here has an average of 17 interviews per vacancy. So that for you guys could either be really good because you're getting a lot of people interviewed, or really bad because they're interviewing so many people and not taking them. So that's when your view creation comes in. You could filter this and go, show me all these vacancies where the average number of interviews is high, but we never went on to place them. So then we start start getting the ideas of how you can drill into that data. And the options are plentiful. As and when you're playing around with this, you'll come up with new ideas and new information, but you can start looking at averages inside that system. And then just to jump into a couple of example dashboards and show off a couple of charts that we've got. Money by sector, top 10 accounts. We've done loads of different examples in here. See if any of these have got some good information. And that's the same chart. Yeah, here's a really good example chart. So this is looking at the current individual, number of contractors by weekly GP and of count of runners. So this can be individual or business-wide. So I'd expand that out. Your different entities within here. On the left, you've got the axis, the first axis you see in the chart options, you've got weekly GP. Then underneath that, you've got another type of count of placements, and then underneath you've got type as contract. Show you how that's built out as a chart. True weekly gross profit, it's the sum. Placements, you want that to be count because you don't want it to sum. And then by the bottom, type, because we've just filtered it down by contract. You can have that by consultant if you want rather than type. The view just shows my contract runners. And within here, we're always going to see current runners and how much weekly GP they are generating us. And again, you can drill into it by client, by consultant. I'll give you that information. That's probably the best idea to do it in that view with all the current runners within our system. But you can drill it out that way. And when it comes to actually creating dashboards, we can get a little bit adventurous with how we show this, using stuff like, I'd always advise using emojis, making sure they're relevant. So for example, you can see here, every dashboard that I use has an emoji in there just so it looks nice. Each view then has that. There's an example of the drop down, but I'll show you how you can limit what's in that drop down. A couple of charts. If you're wanting to start off, just do a 6-pane dashboard. You can make it less, just so when a consultant looks at it, it's not overcomplicated, it's just basic information. If I was going to create a new dashboard now and add some of that information in, when you go to create new, it's going to give you a couple of options of different kind of layouts. So you can have a 3-column, you can have a 4-column, which I've accidentally clicked, so it looks like we're doing a 4-column, but you can choose which ones you have. And then within here, if I'm going to select, let's say I choose a list view, just put the record type as activities, and I'm just going to use the one that we just shown, which was my task to complete. I've got a new laptop, and my trackpad is either double clicks or doesn't click. So I never know what's going to happen with it. It keeps me on my toes, that's for sure. But once you've got a tab put in like this here, so we've got activities put in as my task to complete. If you double click into this, it'll load up the view that you've created. So I'll zoom in, and you can start to set properties. If I come down here, you can see I'm looking at activities, and the default view is my task to complete. It defaults to showing all the different views that you've created in the activities entity. I can choose to turn that off so it just shows that one, or I can choose to show selected view. So I might go into here and go, my tasks this week, my tasks next week. So when I drop that down, I'm only going to see these 3 ones. I press OK. And I might decide actually I want this to be a little bit bigger. If I want that to be bigger, I click these 3 dots, select the one you want, click the 3 dots. And within here, you've got the options to increase width, height, or decrease it as well. So I can expand that over one. I can make it higher. And when you've got multiple different tiles within this, it can be an absolute nightmare to drag and drop. It'll throw it all over the place. Just use your arrow keys on your keyboard, and you can move it around wherever you want a lot easier than the drag and drop way. And we're going to add a chart into here. Again, we're going to choose one that we've just done. So we're going to do placements, where the view is all placements, and the chart is the, say, one of my charts that I created, number of placements by client category, for example. On silver, gold, and it's going to show the blanks as well. And add that into there. And again, you can increase the size of the chart. The only thing you can't do with charts when you come in to edit it, you can choose the view selector like you can normally, but with a chart it's set to off by default. But I can choose I want to drop it down by the ones that are completing probation and the all placements. You can also choose to turn on the chart selector, which will give you the option to drop it down and choose different chart types. You can't determine which charts show up in that view selector, unfortunately, like you can with views. You can choose that chart selector. I'm just going to say that.
Sorry, I was going to say, just conscious of time, I've had a question come through about, is it possible to filter by delivery owner vacancies that are given to another consultant and worked on by someone else?
Yes, so in your vacancy, you have multiple ownership fields for delivery, delivery consultant versus the actual consultant. So you can filter on either of them. So that's the 2 different criteria, just delivery consultant and consultant. They're the names of them. And you can do that on placements as well, because as we said, I just come back to placements, you can look at the related fields. So if I went into add columns, related, and I know it's called delivery consultant, so I can just type that in there. And you'll see I've got the related vacancy at the bottom. There's the delivery owner, in fact. So I can see that from the delivery owner of the vacancy, and I can pull it onto the placements view. So if it's filled in, which I don't think ours is there, delivery owner. If that was filled in, that would show on there. You can start to chart on that information. And then if it comes to, if you're talking more who's past information, which happens a lot when it comes to leads. And a lot of people get credit for converting a lead, but they might not have actually pulled the lead. The two fields I'd look for is the owner versus the created by. So when it comes to, say, info, report on who created it and then who's the owner of it. So it encourages people to assign ownership of info records or any other record rather than passing that information over, say, email. So let's say this one here, you can see the created by was Chris, but I'm the actual owner of it. And the way you do that is I create the lead on the system, I select it, I click assign, I choose the person I want to assign it to. I will always be the person that's created it, but they will now be the owner, so you can report on both and just assign that across like that.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we've run out of time. Unless there's anything urgent that you wanted to show, Adam, other than that, it's
I was
been
just going to
really useful.
show one other thing with the dashboards, if anyone wanted to stick around and watch it,
Yep.
which is getting them a little bit more customizable, which is if I wanted to create a list view like this one, you have the option for adding controls, and these are dynamics-based controls. And before messing around with these, just drop us an email and we can walk through it in a bit more because I'm going to fire through it. But these different control types that you can have. So associated grid, for example, and you can make it visible on the web, the phone, and a tablet. And the first subgrid will always be the one that you've selected for the view, so my task to complete. But then you can choose the other subgrids within here. So I can configure each one. So the entity will always be the entity you're working on. So, well, you get two entities. The one that you're working on, you can choose a second. So if I wanted to choose vacancies, and I can go, I'll say I'll do it in shortlist because it makes more sense. It then gives you the option to select a view. These are only Mercury created views, so the system views rather than the ones that you created yourself. So I might have active in progress, might have the third subgrid as those vacancies, and that might be my active vacancies. And you choose each one that you want, put them in this subgrid. You can change the title of it if you want, but usually you don't need to. You press OK, and if once you save it, you'll see what it can do. So instead of having drop downs, you can have different stuff with the pre-created Mercury views. Refresh my page, and it will tile across the top. That one that we've just created, there's my chart on the right. On the left's going to be the controlled view, and you'll see I've got active in my task to complete, active in progress, my active vacancies. It moves them across, and you can scroll through all of this. There's no limit to rows either. You can create new from within here, and you get full capabilities of being able to clone and activate and everything else that you would as if you was looking at it from the actual page. Same with the activities. You can create new activities or tasks from here as well, which will show up in this. And it's just a neater way of kind of organizing it rather than it being the drop down list like this of my completing probation one that I use as an example. So you can go across or you can go down. But that's a dynamics feature in terms of the controls. There's only a couple in there. There's not loads of different controls, but speak to your CSM. But this one's just called associated grid. Really easy to put in. Speak to your CSM. I'll reach out to myself and we can go through this in more detail. But that's dashboard views and charts in a nutshell. Probably could have done it for 2
Absolutely
hours.
brilliant. Thank you, Adam. I've got one last question, if that's okay. Can we run reports on KPIs for the week from dashboard view?
Yes, we can, but you can't put a target on it.
Okay.
So I think I've got an example one. Let me see if I can load it up. I'll share that quickly.
Yeah, that'd be great. For anyone who does need to dash off, we will be sharing this session anyway, so if you want to catch up on the last couple of minutes, you can. But other than that, feel free to hang around while Adam just goes through this now.
Yeah, so I created KPI-esque one, which is the activity type, so vacancies. So it's count of vacancies, for example, by consultant. You can have this by team, by individual, by client, whatever it needs to be. And then I've just said it's the last 7 days. It can be your date time period. So you can see here, in the last 7 days, I've made 144 calls. Kev's made 160. And this is the example I mean with the drop downs. So I can have last 7 days or last week and drop that down. So I can see other information rather than it being like this, which is a bit in your face. You can choose what you want. But you can do that on interviews, CV send, vacancies, calls, offers, leads or info, candidates created, meetings booked, and you can define down if it's candidate or client. Yeah, it's just whatever your KPIs are really. But there won't be a target. It's more, call it more of a tally than a target. That's the best way
Yeah,
to explain it.
that's really good. I've thought this session's been really useful and insightful. I've learned a couple of things that I didn't know before, so that's always a good sign. And we've got lots of thank yous. Everyone's still on the call. Just to remind you that we have the community, we have the knowledge base that you can go to. You can follow me on LinkedIn because I do product updates every 2 weeks. And yeah, just stay in touch with us. If you've got any questions or anything, reach out to your CSM. Other than that, we will see you very, very soon for another customer session. Thank you so much, Adam. It's been really, really lovely having you here with us today. And I hope all of you have a fabulous